Many of us assume that sexual exploitation does not happen in our backyards. It happens over there, in another neighborhood, another city, the bad part of town. But not here, not where we live. But the reality is that it does happen everywhere, and no child is immune from the dangers of being lured and possibly exploited. So then, what exactly does sexual exploitation look like? How does it happen? To help us understand, we interviewed Jennifer Richardson, the manager of the Sexual Exploitation Unit in Manitoba.
Try not to use any if you can.
Middle-class Canada would be shocked and horrified if they knew how often exploitation was occurring in their community with their children, with their friends' children. The subject's relevant to everyone, youth workers, just citizens, because it's happening everywhere. And I don't think people don't think it's happening, but it is. And if people were more aware, they would identify it faster. And that's what we've found when we've trained people on identifying it. We see a spike in it actually being identified. And the more people that are aware, the more people that can intervene with the offenders who are accessing these children.
So who is the most vulnerable to sexual exploitation? Abigail is a courageous young woman currently studying law at university and is a survivor of sexual exploitation.
When I was younger, I was about 4 years old, my cousin and his mom and dad, my aunt and my uncle came to live with us. And from the moment that they came to live with us when I was 4, my cousin would sneak into my room and sexually molest me. That lasted till about I was 8, and then he raped me. It created a lot of anger inside of me, and from there my mom just didn't really know what to do or how to deal with me, so I had moved from living with her to living with my aunt for a little bit, then living in foster homes, living with friends' families, living back with my mom, and then back into the shelter. And then finally, at 16 years old, the government allowed me to live on my own on social assistance.
Kids who are not supervised, right? They're given their own space, they're given their own place within the child welfare system. They don't feel like they have a connect to people. They feel like they're kind of just out there in the world. Alike to everyone, they're searching for people that they're gonna belong to, feel safe with, feel that they mean something to. I define sexual exploitation as any type of exchange for any type of sexual act for something. So it could be that the child is exchanging a sex act for drugs, for money, for a ride, for a place to stay, for anything really. That would be my definition.
I'm Detective Martin Dick. I am the lead detective here at the Holt Regional Police Service Human Trafficking and Vice Unit. A lot of these girls are craving something that they don't actually have. So if someone offers them an opportunity that they don't have, or offers them what they perceive to be a relationship that they don't have, and it's easier, or there's less thought goes into making that decision.
One day when I had gone to pick up drugs, my drug dealer him and I were talking about where I was living, my living conditions, and he had said, now that you're making more money, why don't you look for a more comfortable place to live other than this rundown room? I know a guy who owns a home, and I think you'd really like living there. So he got a hold of who would become my pimp. He got a hold of him, and him and I met at a restaurant, and we sat down and we talked, and right away he was extremely charming, extremely beautiful. I just said, sure, I'd love to live with you. And within the next week, I had moved into his home. After you've been raped or molested, you already feel impure. So to think that you could sleep with a man for money isn't really that much of it's not that scary.
For the most part, these young people come from backgrounds that perhaps are not the most stable. They maybe have issues in relation to a lack of a father figure within the home. Coming from broken homes, perhaps often we find that they in fact have been victims of sexual abuse as a child. They have witnessed sexual abuse as a child, domestic abuse as a child. They maybe come from a home where alcohol or drugs is a major factor. The average age of entry into the sex trade, certainly from a youth recruitment point of view, is 14 years of age. So when you take that, that's an average. It means that clearly there's children younger than 14 being recruited into the sex trade. We in actual fact have had a number of underage victims of human trafficking that we have found and intervened with here within the region. What I do find is that it's mostly Canadian girls that we find that are being trafficked here throughout Canada.
So then, how do you recognize when youth are being sexually exploited? What are the indicators?
Some of the indicators or markers of kids being exploited are definitely like a disconnection from a positive support group. That might be their family, that might be a church group, that might be a recreational activity. Increased drug and alcohol use, often an indicator of things going awry, depending on a negative peer group, maybe another indicator. Lots of unsupervised time online can often be another indicator. People calling the house or the child at all hours of the night, the child being very secretive, showing up with unexplained objects or not being able to explain where they got the items from. So new cell phones, cell phone plans even, cigarettes. It could be just even being high on weed every day. That still costs a lot of money. Who's giving that to that child?
How did traffickers target youth online?
A lot of traffickers are targeting children now online. They're watching what children are doing online. They're watching what children are putting on their status. They are looking for children in their timelines or in their photos, indicators of that child having those vulnerabilities. So they may be lonely, they may be feeling depressed, they may feel like no one understands them, and they look for those things. And then they provide those things to the child. So if the child feels like nobody understands them in the world and they're putting that, oh, my mom and dad suck, on their status or on their pictures or their captions or their Snapchats, then they're, agreeing with those children, yeah, your parents don't understand you, but I will. So they're countering the things that the kids are saying they need, and kids are very normalized to putting everything that's going on in their lives online now. It presents a massive risk for children because offenders are like sharks in the water. They're just waiting for the one child to be in the water, and they just circle the children and kind of snap them right up. Parents and youth care workers today are really very, very concerned about children's privacy. And not that that isn't a legitimate issue, but oftentimes in hindsight, a lot of parents and people will say to me, I wish I would have spent more time looking at what they were doing online. I wish I would have asked who that person was picking them up. I wish I would have known where they were after school. I wish I would have, checked that they were actually sleeping over at this person's house. And instead of asking those questions because they're concerned about, invading the child's privacy, they back off.
We need to educate them on, not disclosing things to people that they don't know online, and not taking part in activities online that they wouldn't ordinarily take part in, and not doing things because they think they're in a relationship with somebody online, when in actual fact that's been the whole ploy, from the other person, is to get them to believe they're in a relationship when they do something they wouldn't ordinarily do.
So, how do traffickers trap young girls?
I got trapped emotionally staying with my pimp. By him telling me that he loved me and doing things that I guess somebody who says that they love them does, just really made me believe that we were actually going to spend the rest of our lives together and that he would protect me, and that family that I never had, that protection that I never had, he was going to give to me. And even though I had told myself that love doesn't exist, I thought maybe it does, and maybe this is it.
Matthew Diaco is a Romeo pimp who promised love and security to enslave young girls. Charged with trafficking, kidnapping, assault, and forcible confinement, he awaits trial.
Most of these girls, like I said, they're broken. It's not hard. You just gotta answer their call. You get in there, you find the crack. Like, some are drugs, some are just, they need to hear I love you. It's the illusion. Be there for them. Tell them what they want to hear. You tell them, well, we need to put money away. I'm gonna do what I do. See, I'm putting my 50 in. You have to do your 50. So, there's another way you can have sex with guys. But don't worry, I'm gonna love you.
And most pimps know that all we want is to be loved. And we'd be willing to do anything to feel that type of love, to feel love. Even though I really believe that I didn't understand what love was, whatever he was giving me, I connected that with love because that's what he told me that it was. And so it was easy for me to work for him and to give him my money and to just do what he told me to do because he was in return going to give me what I wanted, and that was love.
Knowing someone out there cares. The illusion of it, right? Every girl's had that fantasy wedding in that house with a pink fence. They sell it to her. She'll do it. You just sold her a dream.
Kids are lured into a dream that is far from the truth. What are the ways we can step in and make a difference? Martin recommends encouraging kids, showing them how valuable they truly are.
I think, I just think it's important that you get over to people who either are being exploited or at risk of exploitation, that they are valuable individuals, like that they have a purpose in life, that they are not seen as a commodity to be bought and sold.
People ask me all the time, well, why do kids stay? We've tried to give them a place to be. We've given them food and shelter. We've replaced some of those basic needs that maybe weren't being met. But I don't think we do a good job at replacing the safety and security that the sex trade does meet for children, and we certainly don't do a great job at providing the belonging. And I think too, kids then they get sucked in, and then they do feel like they're not going to belong anywhere else other than the sex trade. And so they don't feel that they can reach out to people.
They have no one to turn to a lot of the time, or they perceive that they have no one to turn to. So if we can provide them with a friendly face, an opportunity for them to trust someone, I think that's the key.
For anyone that works with kids or is in a position that can help youth, I think the best advice that I have is that if a child or anybody asks for your help or for you to be with them, or that they need you, to understand the seriousness of that request. Don't have to have all the answers, because the moment that they're reaching out for you for help is the weakest and most vulnerable moment.
What can we do to stop the trafficking of youth?
For the situation to change, we really do, as a society, have to say that this is not acceptable, that this type of abuse against children is not the children's fault. It's the people who are purchasing sex from these children or trading sex for alcohol, for rides, for whatever it is they're trading for is not acceptable, that we as the adults say to our friends, our neighbors, our family that these children's lives matter, that it isn't just those other kids that end up becoming exploited. It could be my child, and we act as if those children are our children. It could be their husbands or their sons that are the people who are perpetrating this type of violence against children. We need to, as a society, say we just won't tolerate it, we won't accept it, and build more awareness of it.
We really just want to give people that opportunity to get out, you know, of a situation that they truly don't deserve to be in, right? And nobody deserves to be bought and sold. The youth worker may be working with that individual on a daily basis and know that they're being exploited sexually, but can't seem to get through to them. What I would say is that's an ongoing battle, and it's something that you need to get used to, that you know that you can't help these people 100% of the time, and you can't help them instantaneously. But if you keep showing your worth to them, showing that you're trustworthy, showing that you actually truly care about them and there's no BS, then eventually you will have an effect. And it might not be you that person discloses to, but it might be somebody else, but you've played a part in that disclosure. And if that disclosure means that person stops from their life of exploitation and their life of misery and the fact that they've been bought and sold every day of the week, then you can truly be happy within yourself that you've played a part in it.